Okay, so I need to take a breath before I introduce my next guest. She is a legend and one of the most recognized women in the adventure motorcycle world. She's spent over 35 years making this sport approachable for people who thought it wasn't for them. She is a builder and a teacher. If you have spent any time in the adventure riding world, you already know her name. She bought her first motorcycle at 12 years old with her paper route money. She raced at the professional level. She's built a training park and is now in Georgia, and she's coached riders for over 20 years. I heard she went to Mongolia for the BMW GS Trophy in 2018, and she is now on the Backcountry Discovery Route board. She is one of the most respected women in this space, and I'm truly honored to introduce and welcome the one and only Jocelin Snow. Hi, Jocelin.
Wow! I'm not sure I can let you know more about me than I know about me. Then we don't need a podcast. You said it all. There's nothing else that we could influence everybody on.
I'm sure there's lots. Thank you so much for being here. Before we get into anything, I want to start with that 12-year-old girl who bought a motorcycle with her paper route money without telling her parents. Where did that come from? What was it about motorcycles? What got you into it?
It was really kind of a crazy thing. As a child, I was afraid of motorcycles and guns, firearms. And one day, a friend came to visit my folks, and he had like a big Goldwing motorcycle, and I was like, oh my gosh, these are scary. And my folks thought it was weird how afraid I was, so they thought it'd be funny to just stick me on the back and have the guy take me around the block, which he did.
Wow.
And I wasn't afraid of him anymore, just like that. Imagine that. So fast forward a little further, I got my hands on a magazine, right? Remember when we had magazines? And they were
Yes,
so
I miss
popular.
those
They were
days.
like a big deal. And on the front cover was a picture of a rider on a dirt bike doing a big jump. And I thought that is so cool. So I started asking my folks if I could have a motorcycle. And my mom for a while, she was a nurse, and then she was like the head nurse at the emergency room, and then she was like the administrator at the hospital. So she'd seen all the bad stuff, right? And my father was like the principal of my school. So that was a rough one. And they were like, no, no, you're not getting a motorcycle. But I had a paper route, and I got up every morning at 4:30, and so I decided I was going to buy one of these dirt bikes, and I started paying a kid at school $10 a week, just sliding it out of my money and slipping it over to him. So $10 a week, and I think it took me all year. I don't even know, but
Amazing.
yeah. So eventually, he told me, he's like, "Well, you paid it off. You're good." And I thought, great. I don't have any idea how to ride a motorcycle. What do I do now? Like, how do I get it to my house? So I took the school bus to his house, and he kind of showed me how to ride it, sort of. And that was it. And then, like, that weekend, I think his folks dropped it off at the end of the driveway on a milk crate. And there it began.
Wow.
What are your folks going to say? And I'm sure the parents talk to each other too. But all of a sudden I had this dirt bike, and I made every mistake you could make. Like, I didn't know you were supposed to mix oil with the fuel. I didn't know you had to lube the chain or clean the air filter or check the air pressure in the tires. I didn't know anything except what he taught me, which was how to shift and how to roll the throttle on. So, needless to say, I made pretty much every mistake you could. And that little dirt bike was a KDX 80, Kawasaki KDX 80. And that thing was broken more than it was running. And so I made friends at the local motorcycle dealership, and I would push the bike. Sometimes I would sneak ride it, but I would push it, like, I think it was 4 miles to the motorcycle shop downtown, and I got to be
You would
friends with the
push it?
mechanic. Yeah, I would push it if there was cars, and then, like, if there weren't any cars, I would kind of ride it a little bit, and then push it, try
You
to
were always determined then, obviously, to get to where you are. It was
get.
ingrained in you. Wow.
Yeah.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
So anyway, that's how it began, and I learned more about motorcycle mechanics and riding, and that's riding was a different story. Riding, I also made every mistake you could possibly make. You know when you see
Okay.
like the videos of like a brand new rider gets on the motorcycle, the dirt bike, and then they just hit the throttle and they get like
Risky.
totally stuck on handlebars and they ride straight through the fence and into the building or something. That was me, right? Because I didn't understand what I was doing. So
You
found
got to start somewhere.
yeah. So now I'm more about I don't want anyone to have that experience. I don't want anyone to have to go through that. So if I can help riders have a more positive experience as they're learning how to ride
Right,
motorcycles so that
motorcycle.
they stick with motorcycles, and that's a win-win too because it grows the sport and you know how it goes from there. So that's uh, that's kind of become my little mission to help riders, figure it out the right way.
Awesome. I love it. So you made it to professional road racing. So AMA 250 GP, that's super serious. What did it take to get you there? From where you started, not knowing whiskey throttling, to racing professionally?
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of seat time, a lot of seat time on the dirt bike, and eventually I traded that in for a Ninja 250, but only for a short time. I had that just for a few months and decided it was too small, and so I traded that in for a brand new Ninja 750, the little ZX7. That was pretty awesome. That was a pretty awesome machine, and we used to go to the motorcycle races all the time. So, I lived in Maine at the time, and we would go to New Hampshire National Speedway every time they came every year. And I'd be the one on the fence with like my fingers in the little chain link fence, like watching the bikes go by, and I was just fascinated by it. And I had mentioned to a friend, like, wow, wouldn't that be amazing to be a motorcycle rider? And it's kind of like, to me at the time, I thought that was like being a NASCAR driver or a professional baseball player. It's like those things that, like, they're so far out of reach. Like, yeah, okay, maybe not. So a friend of mine came into my shop. I had a sign company at the time, and he rolled in and he brought this magazine. I think it was like Road Racing World magazine. And he's like, you can. Like, look, in the back, there's a school. It's called the Penguin Road Racing School in New Hampshire, and you can go and get your racing license. I thought that was the craziest thing ever. And so I did it.
Huh?
I did it. I just did it.
And that's where you went?
Yeah.
You signed
I
up?
went, signed up, and you spend, from what I recall, it was a good day or so, a good half a day, maybe a day in the classroom, and then a bunch of time on the track. And I want to say it was a day or two of training, and then when you're all done, it's the weekend, and then you have to race. Like you have a race, your first ever race.
Wow.
That was crazy. I won. I don't know how, but I won it with all the other students, and I was like, okay, I'm going to be a racer. And
Natural.
yeah, and so someone came up to me and was like, listen, little girl, you're not going to get far hucking around that, 500-pound Ninja 750. He's like, you should get a race bike. Like, that makes more sense. And I didn't know. I'm like, oh, okay, what should I get? And, that's when he's like, well, you'd go really well on a two-stroke, a Yamaha, like a TZ 250. And, he went on to say, like, oh, every 7 pounds is a horsepower. So you're little, so, kind of like a horse jockey. You might have a better chance, right? Right. So there it
Okay.
began. I bought the bike, and
And
there it went. I wasn't any
awesome.
good at it. Let's just get that straight. Like, at the time, there weren't a lot of women professional road racing. We had like Vicky Jackson Bell. She was doing like 125s. There was another racer's wife, but it was like not heard of. And a lot of times, if you can imagine, some of the racers, some of the guys would see like a little ponytail coming out of the helmet, and I think they'd get tags a little aggressive and make passes that weren't that great. And it was kind of survival out there. And I started
Wow.
shoving my hair up inside my helmet before I would go out so that it wouldn't maybe they wouldn't realize that I was a girl. I don't know. I did all those things.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was really something else. It was quite a time. It's not like that now. Of course, now there's
No, it's
women
flipped.
racing. It's a big deal, but back then it was something. I remember at Daytona in the rain. I finished. This was a race before the AMA. It was another series. I can't remember, but I finished like second in the rain, and I pulled into the garages, and there were these two guys picking on this other guy, and they were like, "You got beat by a girl," and just all this stuff going on, and everybody's all mad. And I thought, wow, this is a tough racket. This is a really tough racket. You know,
I hear that,
it's
but it's changed now.
awesome to see how it's changed, right,
Good,
over the
good,
years. Yeah.
and evolved. But I guess you had to really fight for your place and prove yourself and earn that respect
Yes.
as a rider.
Yes.
Awesome.
Eventually that happened. Eventually you become one of the guys, I guess,
Yeah.
and then more and more women got into the sport, and now it's just fantastic. I mean, whatever kind of riding, whatever style motorcycle, you'd like to do, male, female, it's pretty awesome. So
That is pretty cool. There was a crash in Daytona, I heard, and you had reconstructive surgery on your left hand. That must have been a life altering moment. What went through your mind when you realized what had happened? Like, how long was your recovery? And did you ever doubt that you would ride again at that level?
yeah, so that wasn't interesting. That was at Daytona. It was an interesting weekend. A lot of people don't know this. As a matter of fact, just a couple of people know this. But at the time, I had a boyfriend who I was trying to break up with. And when you have these two-stroke motorcycles, you do all the jetting yourself. So you have like a nozzle jet, a main jet, a pilot jet, and that's the jetting and the carburetor that controls the air and the fuel mixture, right? And those little two-stroke motorcycles are so kind of sensitive, right? So the air density, the humidity, the temperature, all those things affected how that motor would run. If the bike was jetted too lean, boy, it would sound great and it would go fast, but the engine, the crank would seize, right? And the engine would stop.
Okay.
If the motorcycle was jetted too rich, and then it was kind of like a pig, it couldn't get out of its own way, and also eventually the motor could seize or stop. So we had a storm front coming in, and everybody's trying to watch the weather and figure out in the last few minutes. And I had my bike jetted. I was certain my bike was jetted exactly what it needed to be. But this soon to be ex boyfriend of mine, his best friend was also looking for these nozzle jets that I had in my bike, and he didn't have. They were R7s or something, and he didn't have them. So while I was out doing whatever I was doing in the pits, the boyfriend took the jets out and gave them to his friend and replaced them with something much smaller. So
Without telling you?
he did not tell me. And so the bike was super lean. And hey, the good thing was I got a great start. I think I would started off the first lap in like the top 10, and these are all pro road racers. And I was just like a nobody. And I thought, wow, this is great. I'm doing, so well. And I did think in my mind, like, man, this bike is running amazing. And then coming down the front straightaway, I don't know what they got going, 160 miles an hour or so. It just, right as I was starting to dip into turn one, which is a left hander, the motor just seized. And so it locks up the rear tire. And, when you're trying to get off the track, you're supposed to put your hand up, your right hand. But I needed my front brake to slow down as I was going in. So I stuck my foot out, kind of stuck my leg out, hoping that, other riders would see that I need to get on the outside and get off the track. And unfortunately, I got tangled with another rider, and it was like a 2-page spread in Road Racing World magazine, the one that I started reading when I was a kid, and now here I was on the crash page. But we ended up somersaulting with the bikes. It was a horrific crash. He was completely okay. He ended up going to the hospital for checkups, the other rider, but he was good. But I got tangled up with the bikes, and I broke several ribs and my hip, my left ankle, a vertebrae in my back. I cracked a vertebrae in my neck. It was right wrist, arm, some other things. And the worst was separated my shoulder and ripped all of the nerves, I guess, on like a brachial plexus or wherever the nerves are. It's somewhere in the top of your shoulder. So I had no mobility of my arm at all.
Wow.
And so there I was. I managed to get back home with ended up in like a half of a Milwaukee brace and a wheelchair. And I couldn't really use the crutches because I didn't have motion on my left arm. And I was kind of a mess. And I was a business owner, so I was trying to run my business. And I was just like, it was a
And
pretty,
your mom must have been so mad.
yeah, and it was just like not where I wanted to be. And I remember going to a nerve specialist about the shoulder, and he was like, "Oh, you'll never ride a motorcycle again, and those things are dangerous." It was really interesting, he was like negative, 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 but I didn't want to take that. I didn't want to take that as my final answer. So, I already explained early on in the story that I'm pretty stubborn and determined. So the rest of the bones all healed, and I eventually created like this pulley that would lift my arm in the door frame. And I started being completely open to anything anybody wanted to try. Back at that time, we had Nike magnets, we had the Juice Man juicer, we had, shoot, I did this crazy diet. I did anything anyone said. If, oh, you should sleep with these crystals at night, I slept with the crystals. I mean, I'm like acupuncture, everything, all of it.
Yeah, right
And
on.
then nothing was really working. I still didn't have any mobility on my arm until one of my friends said, we're sending a lady who's going to do Reiki on you at your house. I'm like, Reiki? And so they explained what it was, and I thought, oh my word, this is no way. There's that, which is really funny because I haven't told this story in years, but at the gym this morning, talk about serendipity, I met a lady at the gym who was a Reiki lady, and I said, wow, Reiki kind of changed my life. And she's like, how so? And I just told this story. So that's pretty ironic.
That's
Anyway,
awesome.
long story short, it worked. And I started
Wow.
mobility back. I made a full recovery. So I was sure to drive past the doctor's office on a motorcycle and wave with my bad my bad arm. But
That's awesome. That's so badass. I love it. Wow, that's incredible. You had to be open to it.
yeah.
Interesting. So that crash obviously directed your path towards adventure riding and coaching. So it was a blessing in disguise, do you feel? Or one
Yeah,
door closes and another one opens?
they say like the closest thing to a dollar sign is racing. Like racing was really expensive, and I had lots of sponsors. I was definitely supported. I felt supported, but after that type of an injury, it was hard to get back into it. I did. I got a new race bike together, and I went back to the track, and just had a couple of bad experiences, and I thought, I'm just not feeling this anymore.
Hmm.
I wasn't having fun like I had, and I just had this kind of fear I was trying to work through. So I ended up selling
Sure.
the bikes and the truck and all the race equipment, and just kind of went back to riding on the street, and until years went by and decided I thought this adventure motorcycle thing looked really cool. I was at a trade show, and there was one of the booths had, I think it was like a Touratech booth, and they had this black and gold bike. And it was like a BMW GS at the time. It was like a 1200 Adventure, and this thing was gorgeous. And I had the boxes on it and all the camping equipment packed on. I thought, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. This is amazing. And so I sat on the bike. Of course, my feet dangled, like a foot from the floor. And the guy in the booth was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry. I think this is a little too big for you." And I was like, "Man." And then the friends that I was with at the time, they were like, "Yeah, you can't even get that thing off the kickstand." And they were right. So I kind of tucked that whole idea of adventure riding away and thought, okay, the bike's too big for me. I need to accept that. But we already talked about how stubborn and determined I am, right? So eventually that came back
This is a pattern.
around.
That's awesome. When someone says you can't do something, you like go for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's always easier if they say you can do it, but if they say you can't, it just kind of makes you go, really? At first I did. I
Walks
believed it. I thought maybe I couldn't. somehow I had it in my mind that your feet had to touch the ground. I did go and buy a KTM 990 Supermoto Touring, the SMT. It had 17-inch wheels, so this particular bike was lower to the ground. I could just get a tiptoe. And I put adventure boxes on it and I made it look like an adventure bike. And I put knobby tires on it, but they didn't make at the time a knobby tire for the front. So I used a rear knobby tire and I flipped it around backwards. And I was like, this will work.
Wow.
I rode this thing everywhere. I went to like the KTM adventure rallies and I was like, this is my adventure bike. I was like, I thought it was cool. And then one night I lying in bed, I couldn't sleep. It was weird. It was just kind of, I always can sleep, but this time I couldn't. And so I opened up my phone and I did the dumb scrolling social media, and it was weird. It was like the first thing that came up was this 12-year-old boy at the time who was golfing at a pro level with only one arm. And I got sucked into that video and I was watching him and he was just like this amazing golfer. He's no number one, he's a kid, he's little, and he's got one arm. I'm like, wait a minute, this is crazy. And I watched it a couple times, and then I guess after you watch something that like prompts another video. So the next video that slid in is this lady who had a prosthetic arm and she was playing the violin in a symphony, right? And I went to sleep with those images in my mind. And I woke up the next morning sipping coffee going, okay, that's very inspiring. You know, these are their handicaps. What's my handicap? I'm just short. That's nothing. I have now two working arms and hands and feet and I don't have an excuse. I'm going to get me an adventure bike. There it was.
Right on. You go. But it's funny because they were the reason to make you believe that you could do it. But Jocelyn, you're the reason that a lot of women believe that they can do adventure riding too. I hope you know.
You know, during my road racing years, I was really young and I didn't know how to handle that instant fame all of a sudden. You know, being the only female, I didn't really know how to handle the attention. I wasn't very mature. You know, it had like the 6 o'clock news, the Boston Globe, there was all this stuff going on. And I'm embarrassed to say, but I think it kind of went to my head. And looking back, of course, you know, everyone has a moment of fame and then it dies. And then that's it. And I remember looking back after I quit road racing and I was like, man, universe, can you just give me one more chance? I didn't handle that right. I'm embarrassed on how I handled that. You know, I'm more mature now. I've grown. I get it. And so when this thing came around with adventure bikes, and then, you know, we can get into with that whole GS trophy, and I figured out I went to Alaska on my bike and all those big stories. And I was determined to figure out how to keep the bike upright and not tipping it over. And so I found all these like interesting ways that work. And then all of a sudden it was like, it seemed like out in the social media world, they were like, hey, wait a minute, you don't need to be a GS giant to ride these motorcycles. Look at this little 5'1", like she's on it. And BMW contacted me and they were like, hey, it's kind of changing the idea of who can ride these and it's opening up the demographic on who will buy this bike. And so they, you know, they put a lot of attention into me and helped me kind of step forward, as did like BDR and Touratech and the GS Trophy and all those wonderful things. And as that momentum started to build and that attention came back, I thought, I'm getting a second chance. And this time it is all about 110% about helping other riders, inspiring other riders, encouraging other riders, women riders, short riders, tall riders. I don't care. But if someone can see a video of me riding one of these bikes or doing some sort of trick or whatever and go, if she can do that, I can do that. That's what I want to hear. Like to me, it's the most amazing thing. And I wish I could have talked to myself. If my older self could have talked to my younger self when I was road racing, because the best gift is when someone comes up to you and says, hey, you know, you're Jocelin Snow. Let me tell you a story. You changed my life. I always wanted to do this trip to whatever and wherever, and I never thought that I'd be strong enough, and whatever happens, and I was by my side, and I got this bike, and I did it, and it changed my life, and I met my future husband, and we have a kid, and you're just like, no way. Like, it just takes a little bit of inspiration, just a little bit of courage, and if you can help someone with that, I mean, there's no better legacy. There's nothing better in the world. It's just one person. If you could just do it with one person. So,
That makes me feel so verklempt hearing that. I'm getting all teared up. That's a incredible message, Jocelyn.
thank
And
you.
I'm sure you've inspired so many women you don't even know. You don't even
Yeah,
know.
but you know what's better than that? Here's what's better. I've been doing this for quite some time now. The adventure bike was from, what, 2017, right? Now what's happened is these women that I've helped coach and have, got their riding skills, some of them better riders than I'll ever be. Now they're out there inspiring and encouraging and teaching. And then new women are coming in, and it's just like it it's amazing how that works. And so yeah, no, it's not me anymore. Like, I'm all washed up. I'm old news. But there's these new women are coming into the sport, and now they're doing it, and man, it's cool to watch. It's really cool.
I love it. I love your energy and your spirit and your character. Okay, so you built a huge acreage or an enduro park, first in Salinas, right? California, and now you're in Georgia?
Yeah, so I built this enduro park in a little hidden snow ranch. We kept it a secret as best we could, and we ran classes there for a while. And we did some tours, private training, group trainings. It was really some of the best times of my life. And then on one of my tours in Colorado, one of my clients was like, that front wheel was right on my rear wheel quite often. I was like, wow, this guy can ride. So we ended up, a few months after the tour ended, we ended up talking, and then we started dating, and then we got married, and he's from Georgia. And so I moved to Georgia, and here it is, right? So I'm in Georgia, and we are working on setting up a new training facility, the Snow Ranch East, I guess, and
Awesome.
working on how we can still do the training on the West Coast. So it's a little bit of work, but it's starting to morph into shape that we're going to have an East Coast and a West Coast, and we're doing some tours on the East Coast, tours on the West Coast, and now it's just really, it's almost the same thing, but it's a lot more work and a lot more flying. I'm always in that airplane.
Wow, what an incredible life. That sounds so awesome.
Yeah,
So your partner's a rider as well.
yeah, it's
That's
pretty
awesome.
awesome. I'm very fortunate, very fortunate.
So 20 years of coaching riders, and you've seen a lot of people show up terrified, but leave totally capable. So what's the most common thing that holds people back? Is it physical? Is it mental?
So I had a dirt bike riding school like many, many years ago, back in early 2000, where I started teaching kids how to ride. I had like a little Honda 50, 70, and 80, a 100 and a 150. And I had a company supply all the gear so they could try motorcycling before they, bought one. And it started with
Fun.
kids, and then it went from kids to kids and women, and then kids and women and guys. And then it was like anyone who wants to learn how to ride. And so that was like the how to ride school. Then when I switched to adventure bikes, I started working with people on how to ride these big bikes. And then I went to Europe, and I got certified through BMW as an international instructor. And I learned the BMW ways, and I've gone to lots of different training, and we even had training in South Africa before we went to the GS Trophy. So all these amazing companies and amazing trainers, I've just absorbed all of the different styles and methods, and kind of put it together and came out with my idea of what I think can help riders. And it's interesting. Most of the people that come to train, they already know how to ride, right? They could sit there, and I could say, okay, so if you had to ride through these cones and over that log and do this and that, how would you do it? And they could tell me, well, I'm going to do this and that, and I'm going to clutch and the whole 9 yards. I'm going to balance this way and look this way and everything will be fine. But then when they go to ride it, all that goes out the window. And it's like
Yes.
frustrating. Like, I don't understand. Like, I know how to do this. Why am I on the ground? And I discovered that really the biggest thing that holds us back, not just for motorcycle riding, improving our skills, riding bigger bikes, in life in general, is right between our two ears. It's our own minds, it's our own confidence. And when I discovered that, everything changed like big time for me. It's really in our heads, it's really in our minds. Let's just stick with the women aspect because most of
Yes.
my students are actually men that are 6 feet tall. That's my average student. But
Oh,
it's kind of weird, right? But let's talk about the women end of it. You know, for our whole lives, we've been told, you know, that's too big for you, that's too heavy for you. Here, give me that jar of pickles. Let me get the cover off for you. Let me carry that for you. And even though we are capable, we kind of have taken that on as like, okay, maybe that is too big. Maybe I can't do that. And it's really too bad because that's just our environment. We've been taught that. We've been conditioned that way. And that's not the case. We're every bit can handle that bag just like anyone, but we think we can't. And then we actually stumble with it or the cover or whatever it is that we're trying to do. We stumble almost on purpose, like it's almost psychological, like we get in our own way. My training focuses on the mind mostly. Obviously, we do techniques and some of the basics and progress as the rider does, but we have to take it all the way back, and it's a bit of a mind game at the training, and it's unbelievable when you see how that works on a rider. It's unbelievable, and that's why anyone that's looked like the first snow ranch over in Salinas had the cars. We had the cars, and we would ride over a car, and then you would ride over a double car. And it's not because why you're riding over a car. That's sure it's dangerous or whatever, but when you build the rider throughout the weekend up to that point, and then when they get to the moment where they're finally riding over the car, and you get a photo of them on this 550-pound adventure motorcycle, and they're on top of a car, and you show that to them, their face, it's just like their confidence is like through the roof. And then I can take them and do anything with them. We can go ride anything. They'll follow me and
wow.
they'll do it because it's like wow, I can do this. And I mean, really, a car is no more than a hill of dirt. It has a little bump and a little top of a roof and down. Like if it had dirt going out on both sides, it would just be an interesting little bumpy hill, but it's a vehicle. So in our minds, we're just like, wait, I put the motorcycle on top of a car, and that's okay because that's part of the mind game that we play, and that's part of the confidence that we work on building with the riders. So
100%.
kind of fun.
100%. I train women, how to eat healthier and become stronger and get into the gym. A lot of beginners. And I find one of the patterns is they just don't believe in themselves or that it's possible for them or that they can do it. And I think it's from what you said. We're just so ingrained that we're told we can't,
Right.
and then we believe it. And
So
that's
on
so
that
that's
same
very
note,
interesting.
so let's talk about the gym, right? So
Yeah.
imagine I try to put myself in other people's shoes. So imagine, I'm large and I'm overweight and I have a bad diet and I don't have energy. And I walk into this gym because I want to change my life. And then I look around and I see these little, tiny, fit, strong, full of energy, aggressive women. And I think, I'm in the wrong place because that's what we're
Yeah.
taught to think. So
Yeah.
when I'm at the gym and I see, a newer member come in or someone trying it out, especially a female, right? And I
Hmm.
can see them kind of looking around and not sure what to do and feeling, I mean, it's got to be frustrating, we
Intimidating for sure.
yeah, it's, starts with your diet and then starts with your lifestyle, and before you know it, you're in this pickle. And then there are like all these ideas on the internet, like, oh, you can take Ozempic and this and these drugs, right? But then they take away your muscle too. Like, is that what you
That's
really
right.
want? It's like, no, that's just a game. You want to still eat this food, but then take this drug, and you might look better for a little while, but you're not going to feel any better. So I
That's right.
always take the time to go up to a new person at the gym, especially a woman, and I say, "Hey, I get it. They go, "Oh my goodness, you're so fit, and you're wow." And I said, "I get it. I've been there. I was this person that walked into this gym that wasn't eating good and didn't have good habits and wasn't this and that and the other thing, and I get it." And I understand what you're feeling right now. I'll never forget it. I understand that kind of, I don't know, intimidation, apprehension, all these things, self-doubt that you're having. So when I also train on riders on the motorcycles, you know, I make sure they get it and they understand, like, okay, yeah, Jocelin Snow, that's marketing. Let me tell you the truth. I remember. I remember having my first adventure bike and being absolutely petrified, taking it
Yep.
on flat dirt ground, going, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Like, I remember. I remember when I was getting to be a road rider and riding with friends that just disappeared around each corner and not sure if I could do it, and going around the corners all white knuckled, going, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, like paranoid and not having fun and wondering, like, how are these people that are riding motorcycles saying that this is fun? This is exhausting, it's stressful, it's scary. I don't even know why I'm still doing it. I want to just cry. I remember
Yep.
that. I remember going dirt bike riding with these guys, and it was this thing up in Idaho, and the game was to break the girl. So there's these six guys up in Idaho. They had chainsaws on the back of their motorcycles, and we were going on stuff that wasn't even a trail. And I knew it. I rolled
Wow.
in and I saw they had trials tires on the back of their bikes, and they had a 12-tooth camshaft sprocket. And I was like, this is going to be interesting. And it was the most torture I probably had ever. It's like enduro at Erzberg all day long, right? And I didn't have the
Mm.
skills, and I cried in my helmet. But I remember being so hot and so exhausted and so red faced, have to stop on the trail and take my helmet off, take my jacket off, sit down, take a break, and looking at these other riders who rode the same thing I just rode. But they're sitting on their bikes with their helmets and their gear on, patiently waiting for me to get done with my panic attack, or my breakdown or whatever it was. And I thought, there's something going on that I haven't figured out yet, because it's not just the skill level, it's in your head, and there's some other things that need to take place. So there we go. And where I'm going with all that is, whether it's meeting someone in the gym or meeting someone on a motorcycle or whatever it is, I think the best instructors are the ones that don't forget, that remember the struggle, that just understand what it's like and how scary it is. And all these riders that want to get better, and they've heard this saying called the joy of motorcycling. Where the heck is that? Right? And so we're here. It's our job, it's our responsibility to tell them, stick with it. I remember
Yes.
how you feel. I understand that fear, that sick stomach, that, oh my gosh, you're shaking hands. We were all there. Every
Hmm.
motorcycle rider out there started there. And it's important we tell them that, I think.
Yes. I believe you. I think that's what makes you a great instructor. You remember what it's like to be a newbie and
Yeah.
getting on a motorcycle the first time for me, because I didn't know anybody who rode. I've never ridden. I don't know anything technical. I was terrified. Getting onto a dirt bike for the first time, I was terrified. And I think you're right. The best instructors remember that and are patient with you and are encouraging and go baby steps. And then I just watched lots of your videos. The way you speak to the women you're coaching, is very encouraging and very, you're there for them and you're like, you did it, you got it. And you're like their number one cheerleader. And so I can't wait to take lessons from you.
You.
When are you coaching next? When is your next women's training camp?
Yeah, so the training that we have here is full till next year. So I've been doing
Okay.
just the private classes because we don't have the adventure arena set up yet. But I have stuff coming up, so let's see what we have. This is I have to look. I have to write it down on the schedule. Otherwise, I don't know where I'm going tomorrow. So where are we? We're in
Awesome.
May. We have I'm off to the 10 Nation Tour. We talked about that when we first started. So that'll take me a couple of weeks. That's fun. There's nothing better than being a tour guide and taking people around and showing them some of your favorite places and sharing that with them. It's like it's just as good as teaching, I think, or as coaching.
Cool.
So then we're headed up to the the Touratech Rally West in Plain, Washington. That's like June 25th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And we have an all women's training that we're doing up there. And we're calling it a clinic because I don't have a whole day, but it's SheADV. So SheADV.com is putting it on. And I am doing that for them to help them raise money. So we're doing a clinic, I think both days, as well as like a ride out after. So you can learn some
Do you,
tips and tricks, and then you can get on your bike and we can all go ride out. And then I
can
have
you bring your bike or do you rent a bike there?
you can do either. So you can bring your bike, or there's going to be someone there with rental bikes. So either one.
Cool.
And you can get information off the Touratech USA website or the SheADV website. Either one works.
Okay.
And then we have private training, and then we have a Lost Coast tour over in California. We're going back over there, and that's the BDRX route that I helped build for the BDR. But we do have some room for in August 21st, 22nd, and 23rd with Grit there in Utah,
Okay.
GRIT. And we have 2 days of training. We're doing like a Friday training, and then a Saturday we're stepping it up a little more, and then Sunday everybody's going for a ride and working on some of the
Cool.
some of the skills. So that's fun. And then we have more fun stuff in September, more tours. Um, CMA, Colorado Motorcycle Adventures. I'm working with them doing a off-road tour in Colorado. I think it's a women's tour, and so usually I train them along the way. And we have Whale and Wayne. So the Whale and Wayne weekend, that's in Ohio. That is September like 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th. And every year we go and we do a clinic, a women's only clinic.
Okay.
So we do women's only, like kind of beginner intermediate. And then the next day we bump it to like advanced. And then the last day we mix it with the guys' class and the women's class, and we do higher advanced stuff. And what's fun is we've had people come to that Waylon Wayne clinic as a beginner adventure rider, and she's made it all the way to the advanced expert like day on the last day. It's interesting. Like sometimes I find the more I call it green. So the greener the rider, the newer the rider, the quicker they improve, the more they absorb from the training, and the better they get. Whereas, nothing against, people have been riding for a long time, they tend to hold on to some bad habits, and you kind of have to unlearn
Yep.
those before you can relearn. And we have like, beginner riders going, I don't know, am I going to be okay to take your class? And I always tell them, come, because you won't believe it. Because by the last day, you'll be excelling, and you may even be riding better than this rider who's been riding for 30 years. And it happens, and I've seen it, and I love it, and it's really cool. So it's always good to try. Like if you're going to get into a new type of riding or motorcycling, to get some training, try to get some training first.
Proper training.
Yeah, yeah. Unlike what I did when I started, that was brutal.
So you're on the BDR board. So for women who don't know what BDR is, how would you explain it to them?
Sure. So the Backcountry Discovery Routes, it's a nonprofit organization and been around for 15 years. Each year we started off building one route a year, and then I got into many more. But basically, adventure or dual sport style motorcycle routes that go from point A to point B, usually like a 6, 7 day ride. And then that got so popular. A few years into it, we decided to bring in the BDRX routes, and those are routes that loop in a circle, and some of them are a couple, 3 days, 4 days. And what's really cool is it's all planned out. It's absolutely free. You go on ridebdr.com and you pick where you want to go, anywhere in the country. And we have routes all over from the East Coast to the West Coast. We're working on one in British Columbia right now. So you pick your
Cool.
route and you download the tracks for free. And then on the website, it has all the information on where you can stop for fuel, if you want to camp, if you want a hotel. They kind of did all the research for you, which makes it really nice. And the idea of the BDR, they have like 5 missions, and of course to inspire riders like you, like me, like people watching this to get on their bike and get out there and see the world, right? And also to advocate. So when there's, say, a public forestry road that's going to get closed down or something like that, then the BDR will spend the money and the resources to go and fight to keep those roads and trails open for motorcycles.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we just recently had a big victory with a road in Ohio. So that's really cool because that's like great. We work together with the AMA sometimes to make sure we advocate for riders. So that's cool. And then there's educate, right? So we have these things where we teach them, well, when you're out there riding on the forestry roads, off road, on the trails, ride right, because you don't want to come around a corner and hit another rider. Everybody gets hurt, or a side by side, or a car, or anything else out there. So ride right, ride respectfully, know your limits. So we just have some small, carry out your trash, don't stop in front of people's houses, all the little things that sometimes we might not think about to help riders try to be respectful, so that we can keep having these routes and trails and tracks and all that. So, and then
Awesome.
it's to make an impact. The idea is the tracks usually go through these really small rural towns. And when we stop to, have a meal or spend the night or get fuel, it helps these towns kind of come back into life. We've had certain
Hmm.
small communities that didn't have a gas station anymore and didn't have a restaurant anymore, and they're just barely getting by. They just don't have, what they used to have. And then all of a sudden we put a BDR route through it, and it's like, oh my gosh. And there's like the restaurants are opening up, the gas station's open again, the people are happy. So that's always good, to try to help the community.
Yeah, I might have done one that you did, that you made. I went with Cookie and Wendy,
I
and
love
we
them.
did the Austin,
Yeah. Which one did you
the
do?
BDRX, the Austin, right
Oh,
outside
yeah.
Austin, Texas.
And you went to the Texas one. That was fun.
Yeah,
Tell me about it. How was it?
it was amazing. We got to stop at all these little cute Texan towns, and Southern hospitality is so real. And the backcountry, I thought Texas was just desert, barren. It's so lush, and the trails were beautiful. We had water crossings, and they terrified me, but I did it.
I love it.
Wendy was my inspiration. Thank you. I can't wait to take lessons because I really want to learn how to do it properly. But yes, it was an amazing route that went all the way around. We took about 4 days, 5 days, I believe, to take our time. And the towns we visited were so great. And the townspeople were so welcoming.
Nice.
It was such an amazing time. I'll never forget it. Yeah, it's great.
Good.
And now, so I want to do more. I'm hooked.
I love that you're hooked. I'm really proud of you. And I think, training is always good, but it sounds like you know what you're doing because you came back in one piece. You had fun.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're very, very capable. And I think it's great. When you mentioned several times like the people, right? And
Yes.
I always felt like adventure motorcycling, it's a little bit about the adventure, right? The scenery that you get to see, like you saw some of Texas, the riding terrain itself, some of the rocks and some of the fun mud puddles and water crossing. But when it really comes down to like the best part of adventure motorcycle riding to me, it's the people. it's the people that you meet along the way, or the people that you're riding with. You get to know, like Cookie and Wendy are amazing, right? And you really get to know
There you are.
people. You're hanging out for a few days on motorcycles, talking at the end of the day, sharing your experience. You're running into strangers in gas stations and little, restaurants and hotels, and they want to know your story. You're so interesting when you come rolling in with your bikes and all the bags, you strong women, three ladies together, and they want to know, where have you been? Where are you going? And I just think that that's really special because, you know, you're helping each other, you're touching each other in some way, and maybe, you don't know the story about the person that came over to talk to you. Like, maybe they've had a rough day or a rough week, or something just happened that's not good, and they had that interaction with you that made them feel good, and you have a big smile about your adventure, and you're telling and sharing them something, and you don't really know where that story goes, but it leaves with that person and goes somewhere. And that's just, I don't know, I think that's really one of my favorite parts.
It's the people that you meet and the like-minded people that you meet for sure. So it's been wonderful meeting you and getting to talk to you and getting to know you. You're an incredible storyteller. Thank you so much for your time. What's one piece of advice that you can give to a woman thinking about trying adventure riding?
Well, just like what I had said, my piece of advice is, listen, just do it. Just do it. Take a deep breath, let that air out, put your chin up, because you're capable and you can do it. And I know you can do it. And I believe in you, but you got to believe in you. And thank you so much, Ellie. This has been such an honor and a privilege and a pleasure talking with you and getting to know you. I love what you're doing. You're inspiring riders all over the place, and I'm grateful for that. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
I can't wait to meet you in person. I will make sure that I post all your events coming up, and it's good to know that we got to sign up early with you for next year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's do stuff next year.
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Anything else you'd like to add? You're good?
No, just thank you so much. I really enjoyed this chat with you, and we're gonna get our training in, you and I. And it's gonna be awesome. I can't wait. So we'll work
Can't
on
wait.
that.
Thank
Okay.
you, Jocelyn. Yeah.
Okay.
Have an amazing trip. I can't wait to see your pictures. Please post everything. I will repost it. And yeah, I can't wait. I want to do it one day with you. The next 14-day adventure that you go on, I'm in. Let me know
Okay.
when, okay?
Let's do it. Let's
Yeah,
plan it.
next year.
Let's
Yes,
let's plan.
let's plan it. And is it?
Let's do a ladies one. Let's put them all together. It'd be a lot of fun.
Yes.
We could do
Yeah,
it.
so is this one co-ed that you're doing?
Yeah.
Okay. So either one, co-ed or ladies only, let's go for
All
it.
right. I'm in. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Have a great day.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Bye.